CJ Carr led what was a great day for all the quarterbacks inside Notre Dame Stadium, and the depth on offense and defense flashed all over the field, and Marcus Freeman's squad proved that they're not rebuilding, they are reloading. The blue gold game delivered. Now let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome in. This is Locked On Irish, your daily Notre Dame podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Wojciak. I'm a Notre Dame alum and producer at Fox Sports, and I am thrilled to have you here with me on Monday, April 14th. And thanks for getting your work week started by making this your first listen of the day. Before we get rolling, I'd like to ask that you please subscribe on YouTube or wherever you are listening to the podcast today. And this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Okay, I am very excited about today's show because we have some real live football to talk about for the first time since the national championship game on January 20th. The downside is this is the last we'll really see from this Notre Dame team until they take on the Miami Hurricanes in the season opener at the end of August. But overall, I thought this was a really entertaining product, and I was really impressed with what I saw on both sides of the ball. So today, I'm going to dive into everything you need to know from the 2025 Blue Gold spring game. We'll start with the quarterback battle and how CJ Carr may have taken a big step forward, but all the guys played really well. Then we're going to spotlight some standout performances on both sides of the ball, including guys like Luke Talich, Jadarian Price, true freshmen like Burress and Scrap Richardson. We're making some plays as well. And finally, we'll wrap things up with some big picture thoughts, what this game tells us about the roster, Marcus Freeman's vision, and why this team is built for more than just a rebuild. They are absolutely reloading, but we begin with the quarterbacks because that room was by far the biggest story of the day. So here's how I broke it down. I think CJ Carr had the best performance of the day overall, but he did throw that one interception. I think Kenny Minchey was not far behind him at second, and I think that Minchey actually led the single most impressive drive of the entire scrimmage. I'll get to that here in a second. Steve Angeli might have come in third, but I thought he played how we have come to expect him to play. He was cool, calm, collected, didn't really make any plays that made you go, wow, like the other two, but I thought he was in command of the offense. So this is just more evidence that Notre Dame has three good quarterbacks that could win them games, and Marcus Freeman said as much afterward. He said every single one of these quarterbacks could get them wins this season. As a whole, this was an awesome day for the entire Notre Dame quarterback room. They combined for 28 completions on 44 passes for 384 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, and just 1 interception. But as we discuss the quarterbacks and really every single position on the roster today, there are some important context that we need to understand here. It's one spring game, okay? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. This is just the second practice that really anyone could see because the Jersey scrimmage was open to the media last week, but that's just the media, and then they can report on it. Like, I got to watch this game. You got to watch this game. We all got to see what was happening on the field, and people were there in person to take it all in. So CJ Carr's strong outing doesn't erase what happened in the other 11, 12 practices that happened before the spring game because Notre Dame actually has 2 additional practices this week. Usually the spring game wraps things up, but Notre Dame is going to hold 2 more practices based on how things landed with the schedule. But still, the staff has a lot more data than we do when it comes to the quarterback competition and everything else. So I don't think it's smart to jump to any conclusions solely because of what we saw during the spring game. But that being said, this was the most important test for the quarterbacks this spring because Gino Guidugli, the quarterback coach, said it earlier in the spring that the most important time to evaluate the quarterbacks is during team drills, and that's all the spring game is. 120 plays of team drills, although there was some 7-on-7 mixed in there, and they actually had good offensive linemen. Like the first offensive line that Notre Dame threw out there was Anthony Knapp at left tackle, returning starter from last season. Billy Shrout at left guard, Sullivan Absher at center, who is probably the 6th man on the offensive line right now. He didn't start last year, but he's right in the mix. And then at right guard, they have Charles Jagasaw, and right tackle, Emil Wagner. They didn't play a ton with the first team unit, but still, like, it was great to see those guys out there because I did not expect to see Anthony Knapp or Billy Shrout because they're both recovering from injury, and Emil Wagner just played nearly 1,000 snaps this past season. So the offensive line is good shape. is in good shape, and that helped out the quarterback. So that was really encouraging that the offensive line was able to protect the quarterbacks throughout this, and we got to really understand and evaluate what they could do, and not to mention the fact that they're playing in front of a crowd in Notre Dame Stadium. So this is the closest thing they're going to get to a real game outside of any of the practices during the spring. So it's not everything, but it is a very important piece to the puzzle as Notre Dame tries to figure out who will be QB1, and CJ Carr was just outstanding in the blue gold game. He finished 14 of 19 for 170 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. He came out firing. His first pass was a dime to Kevin Bauman on a corner out near the sideline with pressure coming down in his face. It was a perfect pass, and when he threw it, I thought that was a risky throw because I didn't really see if Bauman was going to be able to get behind the defense. He did, and then Carr put it right in the breadbasket for a big gain, and Notre Dame was backed up at the time, so it was a really big throw in a clutch moment, and then he followed that up with another great pass to Jack Larson down the field for a big gain. So 2 big completions to 2 tight ends early on. If you want to have a successful career as a quarterback at Notre Dame, probably smart to throw it to the tight ends early and often, and that's exactly what CJ Carr did in this game. It was also a great catch by Jack Larson on that play. That's what he's best at. I'll talk about Jack Larson here more in segment 2, but he was not open at all. It was great coverage on the play, but Carr made it where only Larson could make that play, and that's exactly what he did. It took guts to throw that ball, but it also took some trust in Larson to make a play. He makes a play, Notre Dame gets a first down, and they just keep the drive alive. It sets up for a field goal by Noah Burnett. On his second drive, he made a few big throws on third down. I thought this was critical. He was facing a 3rd and 8, hit Keidron Young, the running back, out of the backfield on a wheel route perfectly in stride. They get a first down there. Then he made another big throw on 3rd down, right down the middle of the field after a holding place. It was a 3rd and long, found his wide receiver in the middle of the field, puts them in scoring position, and then he threw a nice pass to Elijah Burress on a little rub route. Elijah made a great play to get the ball in the end zone, and there you have it. 2 drives, 2 scoring drives for CJ Carr. He started 10 of 12 for 124 yards, led the first 2 scoring drives of the game, but cooled off a little bit later on. He threw an interception that was intended for Logan Saldate. Great play by Ben Minnick to make that interception. After the game, Marcus Freeman seemed to suggest that it could have been on Saldate for not running the route at the correct depth, but that he would have to go back and watch the film to confirm. Either way, I thought it was a risky throw for Carr to make, especially throwing off his back foot. He was well covered, so maybe Saldate could have run a better route, but still I think, part of that is on the quarterback. Maybe not all of it, but still, he didn't have to make that throw, but it doesn't really matter because that interception does not negate all the great stuff that he did throughout the game, and he capped it off with another touchdown pass. This one is Xavier Southall. Perfectly thrown ball, a bit of a defensive breakdown, but still, he ended with 2 passing touchdowns. He showed impressive poise, accuracy, pocket awareness. He gets the ball out quick and gives his guys a chance to make plays after the catch. Perfect example. 3rd down, he threw a swing pass to Jadarian Payne out of the backfield. He ran it for an easy first down. It looks so simple, but if Carr doesn't throw the ball perfectly in stride to Payne, then he probably is not able to run for that first down. Like if he had to adjust to the ball slightly, that's probably enough to slow him down, allow the defense to get there and make that stop on 3rd down. So really impressed with what I saw from CJ Carr, but I was also impressed with what I saw from Kenny Minchey in this game as well. He had a slow start, 2 of 7 for 23 yards, no scoring drives early, did make a nice play on the ground, stepped up in the pocket, ran for a first down, and hit Elijah Burress on a really nice completion. He had a play action where it looked like he almost fell down, but then stayed on his feet, ran to his right, made a nice throw on the move to Elijah Burress right on the sideline for a first down. Later in that drive, he took a sack on the 4th down in the red zone. I'm not sure if he just didn't see the blitz coming at all or if it was a breakdown in protection, but either way, Preston Zinter would have cleaned him up if it were a real game. So the drive ends there. But then later on, he led what I believe was the most impressive drive of the game considering the circumstances. So as CJ Carr is lighting it up, and Minchey and Angeli haven't really done anything that impressive yet, I was joking with Luke and some of my friends that it kind of felt like Sam Hartman versus Tyler Buckner in 2023, where one quarterback was just head and shoulders above the rest, and you're thinking, wait a second, Notre Dame probably needs CJ Carr to cool off or one of these guys to step up right now because you don't want to be in a situation where Carr just wins this going away and then the other 2 guys transfer. Now, obviously, it was a bit of an overreaction at the time and we were being hyperbolic, but then right on cue, Kenny Minchey comes in, They go right down the field for a touchdown that he runs it in himself. He did it through the air and on the ground. He hit Henry Garrity for a nice pass on a seam route to set up the score. And I just think the fact that he answered the bell on that drive after seeing CJ lead 2 scoring drives was really impressive because, yeah, I know these guys say that they're only focused on themselves, but they get it. They understand that CJ Carr is the young guy. A lot of fans want him to be the starter. He gets these 2 scoring drives. He looks really good. And they're like, okay, wait, now it's my time to step up and make a play. And that's exactly what Kenny Minchey did. And it's not like the quarterback competition was going to be decided on one drive or anything like that, but there was some actual pressure on Kenny Minchey to do something on that drive. And then he had his best drive of the game. And he was confusing the cameraman with his read option fakes. He is exceptional at those. So no matter what happens, if he's on the team in the fall, I am actually more open to the idea of bringing him in certain packages just to run the ball because he is just that good at doing it. And then he capped it off with a really cool backflip after he scored, stayed healthy during it, and I probably buried the lead here. It seemed like Notre Dame came out of this unscathed when it came to injuries, so that's a really positive development for the whole team. But back to the quarterbacks, Minchey finished 6 of 14 for 106 yards. I don't think the stats are a great representation of how he played. I think he was solid, flashed some serious upside, and he is absolutely in the mix to be the starting quarterback. And then you have Steve Angeli. He also started a little slow, 2 of 5 for 18 yards and no scores early on in the game, but then he completed his next 8 passes and threw for a touchdown. He finished 8 of 11 for 108 passing yards and a touchdown. Played well, not quite as electric, didn't have those signature moments like the other 2 guys, but his touchdown pass was a really nice play, ran the play fake, rolled out to his right, zipped the ball into Scrap Richardson, who then ran it in for the end zone. It looked like it was a miscommunication on the routes because there were 2 players basically directly in front of each other, but Richardson was the first guy there. He caught the ball. He ran it in. Angeli did take a sack. He shows less mobility under pressure than the other 2, but I don't think it's debilitating. I think we get a little bit ahead of ourselves in terms of Angeli's ability to maneuver pressure and run the ball. So I thought he put in a solid effort as well. He looked in control, and he plays with a lot of confidence. So what does this all mean? Now the 3 quarterbacks got a chance to prove themselves in front of a crowd at Notre Dame Stadium. Well, Marcus Freeman gave maybe the most honest answer, I should say, about the quarterback competition to date. I'm going to read you the full quote. Quote, "You would like to be able to go into the fall with a 2-quarterback battle. It's really hard with a 3-quarterback battle. We have to sit down and have conversations about what's best for our program and our quarterback, and we'll make those decisions in the future." End quote. Look, we already knew this was going to happen eventually, right? Eventually you have to decide a starter and someone is going to come in 3rd place. To me, that quote makes it seem like they are going to probably have to whittle it down to 2 after spring practice ends here this upcoming week. He's not going to tell us directly who came in 3rd, but we're probably going to be able to figure it out if one of these guys decides to submit their name in the transfer portal, which opens up on April 18th. But at this point, I feel like it's really difficult to say who it's going to be because Angeli has shown that he can perform well on Saturdays when he came in during garbage time these past couple seasons and also when he had that start in the Sun Bowl against Oregon State. Kenny Minchey played the best in the Jersey scrimmage last week, according to Jamie Uyeyama from Irish Sports Daily, who said that on this show. Tim Priester from Irish Illustrated said that he also thought Kenny Minchey played the best in that Jersey scrimmage, but then CJ Carr was definitely the best quarterback during the Blue Gold game. So we go back to how we started here. The quarterbacks have a lot more data than we do, right? We have seen one practice, we as a collective fan base, and then there's the Jersey scrimmage where the media was able to attend, and then there's a whole lot of other stuff that goes on behind the scenes. But based on what I saw in this spring game, CJ Carr looks like he's a little bit better than the rest, but we are going to see if that's enough for him to be the starting quarterback because there's so much more that goes into it. And I just think this is going to be a very difficult decision for the Notre Dame coaching staff. But you know what? It's a good problem to have when you have this much talent in the quarterback room. The quarterbacks might have stolen the show, but they were not the only ones. Notre Dame's depth chart was buzzing with all kinds of breakout performances. So coming up next, we're going to highlight the biggest standouts from the blue and gold game who weren't in a green jersey. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. All right, we just spent a lot of time talking about the quarterbacks. Let's talk about the guys on defense who stood out during the blue-gold game because, let's just be honest, this was not really suited for the defense to have a ton of success. Certainly not in the scoring system. The offense won this going away. And Marcus Freeman even said after the game that he has to figure out a scoring system that is more compatible to what the defense provides and makes some more competitive balance there. But looking aside from all of that, I think there were some guys who really stood out to me in this spring game, Luke Talich being the first one. He led the team with 9 total tackles, had a tackle for loss, and he was just all over the field. He had the hit of the day near the goal line. It's 4th and goal. The offense ran the ball with Aeneas Williams to the right side, and Talich just lit him up. The whole crowd, you could even hear it on the broadcast, just go, ooh. It's one of those big hits where everyone's like, wow, nice play. But it was a great play by Luke to fill the gap there and make the play on Aeneas Williams, who is a very strong running back, a very good running back for this Notre Dame team, but he was stopped dead in his tracks by Luke Talich. And I think Jalen Stroman, the transfer from Virginia Tech, is still probably expected to be the starter, but Talich is great size, he's got great length, and he's more athletic than people give him credit for, so he absolutely has a chance to win this job, as does Tate Johnson, who looked pretty good in this game as well. But I thought Luke stepped up, really made some plays out there, which is good because I think he's been waiting his time. I mean, he bet on himself coming out of high school. He had offers from like Utah, Oregon State, wanted to play at Notre Dame, took a spot as a preferred walk-on, earned that scholarship. Now he's trying to earn a starting spot, and I thought his performance in this game was really outstanding, and it's going to go a long way to whatever happens from this season, because even if he doesn't win the starting job, he's absolutely going to be a factor on this defense. He's going to play and contribute in Chris Ash's first year as the defensive coordinator. Another guy who's trying to fight for some playing time, Preston Zinter. He feels like the odd man out in that linebacker room, but Max Buller raves about him. He's a mainstay on all the special teams. He made a lot of plays in this game. I mentioned him earlier when I was talking about Kenny Minchey. Made a great play, blitzing off the edge, and he was coming downhill in a hurry. He would have literally decapitated Kenny Minchey if it were a real game, because Minchey did not see him coming at all. But because the quarterbacks were not live in this scrimmage, Zinter just tapped him on the shoulder. But I was just thinking about what was going through his head, like if that were a real game, just having a free shot at the quarterback like that. But that wasn't the only good play Zinter made. He was all over the field in this one. So the fact that he's like the 6th linebacker in the rotation shows you just how good that room is. He's going to continue to fight to get more playing time, but they're just loaded at that position, and Preston Zinter is a good example why. Jared Dawson is a player who I was keying on a lot in this game. I've said it before, I think he's one of the most important people on the entire team. The transfer from Louisville, who is projected to be the starter at defensive tackle, or one of the starters at defensive tackle, and he looked just as disruptive as Al Washington referred to him earlier on in the spring. He had 3 tackles in this game, and this is a position that is not suited to light it up on the stat sheet at all. So the fact that he had 3 tackles is encouraging, but he also just eats blocks, right? And he sets up the linebackers for success. Defensive tackle is not a very glamorous position. You're not going to really make a ton of plays that the fans see and fans notice, but when you're as disruptive as Jared Dawson, you become a little bit more noticeable, and I think that he was certainly a standout player in this game. And the fact that he continues to excel whenever anyone gets a chance to watch him has me more excited about what this defensive line can do in the fall, because I've said it many times. I feel really good about the edge rushers. I have some concerns about the depth and on the interior of the defensive line. But if Dawson's a hit, Jason Onye plays up to his full potential now that he's back with the team. Gabriel Rubio stays healthy. Donovan Heinisch, you know what you're going to get from him. Just he's going to give it his all in every single play. Like, the defensive line is certainly trending up, and Jared Dawson is a big reason why. couple young guys I want to highlight here. So Carson Hobbs, very confident player. He was solid in coverage, had a couple pass breakups, had a big tackle for loss. Like, he made a great play on Kedron Young in the open field. Kedron Young is a big running back. He has probably 40 pounds on Hobbs. He catches a ball out in the open field, and Hobbs just came in and lit him up. And guess what? He let him know about it as well. Carson Hobbs reminds me of like a better Jaden Mickey. Like, he likes to talk his trash, but he's a very, very good athlete, very confident. To the media, said that he tests at the very top in like all the athletic categories that they do with Lauren Landau and a strength and conditioning program. So it's still a very crowded depth chart in that cornerback room, obviously with Leonard Moore and Christian Gray, who are going to be the starters. But Carson Hobbs is waiting, and he's going to be an impact player on this defense here in the near future. And Ben Minnick, he had the interception that I talked about earlier off C.J. Carr. Great positioning on the play, flashes speed, and he looked like a player. And I'm not going to lie, I have not really heard Ben Minnick's name in a really long time. I kind of forgot about him, but he looked good when he was out there. Same with Elijah Hughes and Cole Mullins. Both those guys finished with 5 tackles, reserve defensive linemen, but if Notre Dame could get anything from those guys this year, that would be big. They don't look as like physically imposing as Jason Onye or anything like that, but they were effective, and Notre Dame needs those depth pieces to hit. Last guy in the defense I want to mention here, Kingston Viliamo-Asa. Didn't play a ton in this game, but when he was out there, he was very effective, had two tackles for loss. He's just so instinctual and so aggressive. He's got a great linebacker aesthetic too, but I'll be honest, I do miss the long hair flowing out of his helmet. But KVA didn't play a ton in the spring game. You know, they need to keep him rested. He's going to be a key contributor for the defense this season, but he just made some really nice plays out there, and I think he's going to just ascend this season. He could be a star on this team and really in all of college football here pretty soon. All right, now let's go back to the offense and talk about the guys who were not quarterbacks but played really well in this game. Jadarian Price, 6 carries, 44 yards, wasn't out there a ton, but averaged 7.3 yards per carry. And I think the most impressive thing with Price is that he looks really confident, hitting the hole, running hard, and going north and south. Happy feet has been his issue since he got on campus at Notre Dame. He likes to break plays to the outside. Sometimes it works, and sometimes he breaks off huge runs. He had 15 explosive plays last year. That was tied with Jeremiah Love for the most on the team. He would be the starting running back on a lot of other teams in college football, but it's great that Notre Dame has him as their number 2 option. It would not shock me at all if Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love both finished with over 1,000 rushing yards this season, considering that Riley Leonard, the quarterback, is not going to be taking up as many carries and yards this season as he did last season now that he's gone off to the NFL. Like, Notre Dame's going to run it with the quarterbacks to some degree, especially if Kenny Minchey ends up winning the starting job, but I don't think it's going to be nearly as much as Riley Leonard, which means more carries for Price, Love, and everyone else in that room, and I think Price and Love could do it. I really do, especially after watching Price in the spring game. Eli Raridon didn't light up the stat sheet, only had 2 catches, 21 yards, but he looks healthy and he's reliable. He's really good after the catch, and he looks like he's got all the physical tools to be the next great tight end, and as long as he's healthy, he's got a great chance because, make no mistake about it, he is the tight end 1 in this room. Notre Dame really needs him to have a big season. He did have a holding call. He did have a fumble that he recovered himself, so that kind of stuff definitely needs to be cleaned up, but I like what I saw from Eli Raridon. He certainly looks the part for a Notre Dame tight end. And then Kedron Young, another running back here, finished with 8 carries, 25 yards, but added 3 receptions and 34 yards as well. He's just a very versatile player that abuses defenders in this game. Like, whenever he gets tackled, he just manages to get another yard or 2 falling forward. It's kind of like Wojciak Estime. You know, unless he would get stuffed at the line of scrimmage sometimes, but if he was getting the ball and he got past the line of scrimmage, like, you weren't just going to get him straight to the ground. He was going to get another yard or 2, and I see that with Kedron Young. I really hope that Notre Dame can keep him around, because even if he's like the 4th option in the room right now, the combination of Young and Aeneas Williams next year, once Price and Love leave, that could be lethal, and you started to see why in the spring game. A couple wide receivers I want to mention as well. Elijah Burress, one of the most talked about early enrollee freshmen this spring, showed why that is. Had a touchdown, had another nice catch as well from Kenny Minchey on the sideline that I talked about earlier. That was a really nice route by him on that play from Minchey. And then on the touchdown pass from Carr, like, Burress made that happen. He had to make a play to get the ball in the end zone. He did. So he just looks really comfortable for a freshman wide receiver. And then Scrap Richardson also looked very comfortable, which is really surprising because he had never played wide receiver until he got on campus at Notre Dame. He's a quarterback/athlete. High school did did pretty much everything for his team down there, but he just looked like a natural wide receiver. He made this one play downfield where the ball was underthrown. He had to adjust to it in the air with the defender in his face. Did it, made a nice play. Then he scored on that pass from Steve Angeli later in the game. Like, he looks really quick, fast. You can see the athletic ability that got the Notre Dame coaching staff excited. That's why they offered him out of high school. So it's going to take some time for him to develop into a college wide receiver, but I was really impressed with what I saw from him. And Jack Larson made one of the best catches of the day on that pass from C.J. Carr. Finished with 2 catches, 41 yards. He looks a lot bigger than he did in high school. He's 250 pounds now, and he shows that he still has a great knack for making plays on the ball when it's in the air. Like, when he was in high school, he's undersized, but he could catch everything and anything. Like, he made some unbelievable highlight reel plays when he was in high school, and I think that as he continues to physically develop, that's going to stay with him. And we got to see that a little bit in this spring game. So if he continues to develop, I think he could be a factor this season and beyond. In the offensive line, like I talked about him a little bit in the open, the fact that Notre Dame had their starters out there for a little bit, but they look strong overall. We didn't see a ton from the starters, but it was just great to see the offensive line out there, the familiar faces. Like, obviously the line is going to be different with guys like Knapp and Trouth and Wagner in the mix. And I was worried that it could be like the Jersey scrimmage and bad offensive line play could make it hard to evaluate anything, but that was not the case. They absolutely held their own against a very stout Notre Dame defense, and I just was really, really pleased with what I saw from so many different players in this spring game. So we saw a promising play from the quarterbacks. Young players look ready to break out. The depth charts just seems loaded at this point in time. So what does it all mean for the bigger picture? Let's zoom out right after this. Today's episode is brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. All right, we've already gone a little bit long on today's show, so I wanted to just wrap things up with my last big picture takeaway about the Blue Gold game without getting ahead of myself or anything like that, because we already started off the show with all the necessary caveats, right? When I look at this team, and I look at the depth, and I look at the talent at every single position, I came to the realization during the spring game that they're not in a rebuilding year. There's really no such thing as a rebuilding year with this team right now. They just reloaded. Really, they did. They could be deeper and more talented than the team from last season. Now, does that mean they're going to make it to the national championship? Who knows, right? They could. They could end up winning the national championship. There's a lot of other factors in play, like the leadership, the intangibles. The road is going to be harder this year than it was last year. So there's still a lot more factors in play, but it's hard. It's damn near impossible to watch this team play and not get super excited about what they are capable of, because this was really entertaining. And as I can tell you from a Notre Dame fan who's watched spring games throughout his life, like, more often than not, blue and gold games are pretty boring. Like, it's fun at the beginning. It's fun to just see the team out there. You get to see the starters, and then, it's great to see the walk-ons get their shine. But, like, you're kind of just waiting for it to end at different points. But I was intrigued throughout this game because there's just so many guys in the roster who, when they get their chance, you're like, finally, I'd love to see, a guy like Ben Minnick with his opportunity. And then he makes an interception. Luke Talich is making plays all over the field. And then Carson Hobbs is like talking a bunch of trash and he's making plays. And then you already know that the starters are there and they're going to be key contributors for the team this season. There are just dudes everywhere. There really are. And Notre Dame is a very talented team. And some of the best players didn't even participate. Like, no Jeremiah Love for example. Malachi Fields isn't going to be on the team until the summer. The wide receiver transfer from Virginia, who's probably going to be the best wide receiver Notre Dame has had since like 2019. Jordan Faison wasn't there. Ashton Craig, as he recovers from his injury. Same with Boubacar Traore, Jordan Botello, Micah Gilbert, the young wide receiver who I was so excited to watch this spring. He's got a broken hand, but there were still so many other guys who impressed in the spring game and really have impressed all spring long. So the coaching staff and Marcus Freeman especially deserve a ton of credit. Their talent development, retention, and recruiting are all on display. And the spring portal window opens up in a few days, and Notre Dame is definitely going to lose some guys, no doubt. But I think the culture in that locker room is real, and that's why they didn't lose a ton of guys in the winter. And even though there's definitely going to be some guys who don't end up coming back to this team, they're going to get strong offers all over the place, but I think that the majority of the guys are going to come back, and this team is going to be absolutely stacked going into next season. This staff has done a great job of developing all the players on the roster, like not just the starters. It's one thing to just develop your starters, and they get better as the year goes on. But as we saw last year, Notre Dame dealt with a ton of injuries. They had to play guys like Junior Tuialamaka, who was a third-string Viper going into the season, but he had developed in his career, was a big-time recruit coming out of high school. Granted, he played linebacker before he switched over to defensive end, but still, like that is the type of development story that you need to win at the highest level, and Notre Dame is doing that at every single position. So it's not just Marcus Freeman, it's the coordinators, it's the position coaches. Like the full football program is in such great shape because they have a great foundation. It really starts with Marcus Freeman. So I just look at what this team has on the roster right now. They're just not in rebuild mode. This team is ready to compete at a high level, and the spring game showcased why fans should be optimistic, and they have just so many fun players to watch. I'm personally more optimistic about this team now than I was before the spring. I feel like on defense, they're really strong at every position and potentially elite at linebacker and defensive back. I'm much higher on the defensive line now than I was at the beginning of the spring, although I'm not ready to say they're going to be elite or anything like that just yet. A lot of it depends on the health of Traore and Botello, but really like what I've seen from that unit so far. And then on offense, like the offensive line should be great as long as they stay healthy. The running back room, in my opinion, is the best in the entire country. Like Penn State with Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen, that is a great 1-2 punch that goes toe-to-toe with Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. But when you look at the guys behind Price and Love, that's when I think Notre Dame really just has a step ahead of everyone else in the entire country. When like Aeneas Williams is your third running back and Kedron Young is your fourth and Jabon Payne is potentially your fifth option. I don't know if all five of those guys are going to be on the team here in a couple of weeks right now, but that team or that group is so loaded. The wide receiver room should be much improved with Malachi Fields and hopefully big steps from Jaden Greathouse and Jordan Faison and whoever the quarterback is. Should be good enough. Like we have seen enough from these quarterbacks to understand that whoever they pick is going to be good enough to lead this team to wins. Now, is the quarterback going to be capable of winning a national championship? Who knows, right? We're going to have to wait and see on that, but I feel good about every single one of those guys, Angeli, Carr, or Minchey, whoever it may be. They're going to walk into a great situation with the talent they have around them. I guess my two concerns are the depth at tight end, although I feel good about Eli Raridan as the starter, and the kicking game, because I just don't really know what to expect from Noah Burnett. He had a great season a couple years ago at North Carolina. Last year regressed a little bit, is recovering from an injury, which scares me because Notre Dame could not kick a field goal for a little bit there when Mitch Cheater was recovering from an injury. So hopefully Noah Burnett is able to figure that out before the season starts. He did convert on a 43-yarder in this one, but if those are your only concerns at this point in the year, like you're in a really good place. So really, really fun time watching the spring game. Now the long wait begins until the season opener against Miami in late August. That is going to be a long wait, but this was one heck of a preview. Really excited about what we got to see in this game. And I'm actually going to be right back here tomorrow morning with Luke Smith to talk more about the blue and gold game. Luke makes his return to the show. Really excited about that. And we're going to talk about that Nico Iamaleava situation at Tennessee and how it pertains to Notre Dame. No, Notre Dame is not going to go after him. I saw a couple people report that. That's insane. But it wouldn't surprise me if there is some connection between Notre Dame and Nico Iamaleava. So make sure you tune in to tomorrow's episode to find out. That is what they call a tease in the industry, folks. Also, make sure that you subscribe on YouTube or wherever you are listening to podcasts. And if you like the show today, I'd really appreciate it if you gave this video a like, if you're watching along on YouTube, or if you're listening to the podcast, you can help us out a great deal by rating the show 5 stars and leave a review on your preferred platform. Have a great day, everybody. See you tomorrow.